Hey everybody, welcome to Founder Stories. This is actually our first episode of this season and really excited to have Makaela with us. She's founded Free the Fresher and you went from 0 to 30,000 members in your first 12 months. And as I understand, you are now doing around 2 million a year. So the point of this series is to have a look at the inside of what it takes to be a founder, what it means to grow a company and then sustain it as well. So super happy to have you on the show. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
No problem at all. So perhaps some people will have heard of Free the Fresher, especially if they've been to a UK university, but some people wouldn't have heard of you guys yet. Do you just want to give us a quick overview of what you guys do?
Yeah, of course. So we are a subscription-based service for university students. So if you are a fresher starting university or just starting university in general, you sign up with us and you pay a low monthly subscription rates, and then we give you discounts to loads of brands across the UK, and then everything you need for university for just £50. So like everything you need from moving in, school stuff, just everything you can think of at a really, really, really low cost, delivered like directly to your door.
Nice. So, because, I'm sure something every student needs. Perfect. And I presume that it wasn't always that way. You didn't just immediately have a successful company.
No. You know, it was a struggle, still is a struggle. But yeah, I started Free the Fresher when I left university in Reading when I was studying law. And then I decided to go to London. And, you know, I decided I didn't want to do law anymore. I decided I wanted to move to London and study something else. And then obviously moving to London and understanding the struggles of being broke in the city as a student, you know, it inspired something like Free the Fresher, because it was definitely a service that I could have used at that time. So no, it wasn't always like that. But yeah, I'm happy for what happened, because it led to
so many. This is something I really want to get through on this series. Is a lot of founders, their companies solve the problem they had. That's all, you know, it's like 90% of founders that just solving problems that they had themselves. So it's quite interesting. Well, now I want to jump into your story really early, far back, because I find it interesting because people come from different walks of life. Some people are very much like a born entrepreneur type of thing. They were always hustling and selling things, but I don't think that's quite your backstory. Your backstory is different to that, because like you said, you were going to study law. So could you give me a bit of an insight into sort of your childhood, your upbringing?
Of course. I had a really amazing childhood. So where I currently am, like I was born and raised in Bermuda. I used to be very, very athletic. And then around the age of 14, I went to school in the UK. Both my parents are like super, very accomplished people. Like my dad's like a CEO of a company. My mom works at the bank. But from like a very young age, they instilled a very like a work ethic in all of us, in all of my siblings. So from the age of like 11, I had like my first job. Every summer I was working. I just always really had that attitude in me, like thankfully to my parents. So I went to England when I was 14 to boarding school and was on like sort of this trajectory, you know, that I sort of mapped out for myself really young, where I was like, I want to be a lawyer. This is what I'm going to do, you know, make my parents proud, like that whole shebang. So, so I stayed in England like all the way up until university. And then when I was in university, I sort of started to realize, I was like, okay, this isn't my jam. This isn't what I really want to do. You know what I mean? I never really thought of myself as an entrepreneur. That wasn't even really something that I saw myself even getting into. Like I just knew, like I had certain qualities about myself. I was always very sure of myself. I knew that like I had a really good work ethic about myself, and that if I did want to do anything, I was a very goal-oriented person. I think that actually comes from like all the sports that I used to play and how athletic and competitive that I used to be. So when I did decide to leave university, obviously my parents weren't like super happy about it, but you know, eventually they were supportive. Eventually they were very supportive. But so when I left, it was the first time, I'd say, like in a really long time, that I was just so unsure of myself. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. It was very aimless in a sense. And at that time, that was very scary, but it did kind of open a path for, you know, me to really just do whatever I wanted in terms of like my future goals and things like that. So when I moved to London, of course, it was very difficult, but the need of actually like being on my own and like trying to work it out and then coming up with the idea, you know, it just kind of all really fell into place. And then when I came up with the idea and sort of saw the work that I need to do to like actually make it happen, I'd say that's sort of when like that work ethic that I, you know, had been installed in me from
work ethic, but you mean panic.
Also, you know, it really sort of pulled through
Sorry. When did you have that moment? Because if you're not entrepreneurial, and I think this is because lots of people think you know, always been entrepreneurial. What made you, what ticked inside you, or what was there a moment or an element where you said, you know, I'm not going to go and get a job to solve this or join a company who are trying to solve this problem? You just went, I will solve it myself, because that's a very different mindset. Most people would jump to some, you know.
I honestly think it was a combination of a lot of things, because I say this to the day that I die to anyone, you know, it seems like a really attractive thing to like want to be an entrepreneur, you know, and, you know, it's really glamorized a lot, but it's actually so difficult. Not a lot of people have the energy, work ethic, or like motivation that actually goes into it. It's like very relentless and very difficult. So when I sort of made that jump, it was like a combination of a lot of things. At the time, I didn't really feel like I had anything to lose because, you know, I'd already like, you know, that I already had
thrown everything away, so there's nothing left. So
literally, at the time, I didn't really have anything. I didn't really have anything to lose. You know, I was, you know, in a phase where I was like, you know what, I'm young. I'm just really gonna take this risk. Like, what's the worst that can happen? And then also the fact that I sort of knew that I would be willing to really like put my all into it and like keep going. And then also at the time, failure wasn't really an option. So I like ruled that out as even a possibility. So that mindset alone sort of helped when I sort of came to situations that I just, you know, didn't know or didn't know how I was going to like overcome or get over, but just the relentless, okay, you know, this is going to work. I'm going to find a way to make it work. But it's honestly like different jolts for different people. And that's why I say it's like, I think it's really good to like try and do things early, because when you go into business, like you need to fail a lot. You have to fail a lot and fail very quickly. And, you know, the stamina for that reduces the older you get and the more responsibility you have. So, you know, to be really risky when you're young, you know,
bit easier to do.
Yeah, literally. But I'd say it was honestly like a combination of different things and different, you know, different motivations. Like everyone has something different, but I knew I would be able to, you know, to really work to really see it through. And I really had the energy and I really had nothing to lose at that point. And then when things were getting very difficult, you know, it was just the relentless me.
Just keep moving forward.
And just keep pushing through it.
How did you go about, so you've got this idea now, we're going to make this product, or we're going to make this service, or whatever it's going to look like. How did you go about planning out, you know, how are you going to get people through? Did you think, well, I need to get people through the door in sales, or did you think I need to go and get funding, or I need some partners, or?
Oh no, there were so many different phases that I went through before I landed on my actual model that happened. So ideally it was first, I was like, I want to provide these packs, like my freshest packs at like, you know, a really good cost, everything you want delivered like directly to your door. And then as addition, discounts to like all these cool brands. So my first thing was like, okay, if I partner with these like really cool brands, you know, that will be really great, but I'm trying to like bring customers in. But like I was emailing, contacting everyone. They're like, who are you? What are you trying to do? No. You know what I mean? They're like, it didn't even give me the time of day. So I was like, okay, so you can't go for the brands first because I'm a nobody, and they're just like, what are you even talking about? So then I had to be like, okay, I have to come to these brands with proof that I have like members and students that are actually buying into the service. So I was like, so I need to focus like mainly on the packs first. So then I was like looking into different ways of doing that, you know, trading overseas, partner with the trading company, like just spoke to different people about how I can get like all this stuff at that price. And when I figured that out, I realized that to break even, I needed 2,000 members, which is a very, very, very big goal to have when you first started coming. Like, you know, I need 2,000 people to break even. So that was, you know, that was what I set myself up to do and the task that at hand really. So I was like, okay, I need these 2,000 members for the packs, then I can go to the brands and things like that. So then I repositioned myself into like marketing to like bring like these students on board. And that went so many different ways. I tried like different types of advertising, Facebook Black posts, you know, competition, like survey series, so many, just like a plethora of things. And then only for literally, I'm sure you know the story, when I like launched my website, I launched my website and then I got no views, no nothing. No one knew about me. So I left England, went back to Bermuda and worked 3 jobs. And then all the money I was making from working, I was just sinking into like different advertising funnels, different companies I could partner with and like sort of get the word out. And it wasn't until I spent at least around, I think it was like around like $10,000 on different things. And I went from, it was like a 48-hour window where I was like, okay, I've just wasted my money. None of this is going to work. I don't know what I'm going to do. I was like, okay, I tried. And then it just took one funnel to work. It literally just took one funnel to work. And then I went from having like no one sign up to literally, it was like about it was like 5,000 in like 48 hours. And then from there, from there, I was just, you know, building on them and the loyalty with them. And then, you know, I hit my target and then it was smooth sailing from there. But honestly, within from the time of like inception, like of having the idea to the launch, my model changed about 4 times, I want to say 4 times. Different things I was trying that wasn't working. And then when I could prove, I was like, okay, right now I have like a database. At the time, it was like ultimately small to me. It was like, you know, 7,000 students. You know, then I can go to the brand like, hey, look, I have all these students, you know, that can benefit from your discount. And then they're like, oh, okay, let's work something out, you know?
Yeah, the first time you go to somebody and say, hey, can I sell all your products really cheap? They're like, no. But when you come back and say, I've got all these people who want to buy your products, can you do me a deal? They're like, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, and I had to learn that the hard way, because when you have an idea, you think it's amazing, and and it probably is, but no one cares. No one cares. You know,
your idea was great for the consumer, but not so good for the people having to give away discounts. And so what does, I want to stay on this evolution of your sales process, because I think it's a big one that people don't necessarily realize is that hard. Like you sunk 10 grand into advertising, you tested 4 different business models, probably an entire plethora of adverts and whatever else before you landed on something that worked. So that was without, sorry, I was just saying you've tested a whole bunch of different things, many different ads, sunk 10 grand into it, loads of different sales funnels before you landed on something that worked. And that was 5 years ago. So what's your sale process today, and does it look the same?
Sorry, can you repeat the last thing? I could not hear you.
So what's your sales process today? And does it look the same as when you launched?
Oh no, completely different from when I started. So no, it's completely different. I think with any business, if you know, sometimes you find one that works, but like with your customers, like things are constantly changing and the model's constantly changing. So within my first 2 years, I was doing a lot of just B2C. So I was trying to directly get like students to sign up with us and come on board and like be members with us. But then I think it was in my second or third year of business, I started to sort of change a bit and partnering with student accommodations. So where I would partner with like accommodations and they would supply my packs and memberships to the students that they had living with them. So, and then I was focusing like very heavy on that in my in my third year. But where I've transitioned into now, whereas I'm trying to literally balance both, like do accommodation deals and do directly to customers as well. So, you know, two different models for two different things. But yeah, definitely evolved from the original, you know, just going straight to consumers.
But you've got I suppose the point of that is that those partnership deals brought you cash flow, got your business off the ground, but you're constantly at the mercy of those businesses giving you referrals and staying in business themselves. Whereas if you go direct to the consumer, you own the brand a bit better, you own the marketplace, your space in it a bit better. Is that the goal?
It keeps breaking up. I'm so sorry.
No, I was just saying the idea behind that is that your partnerships bring you sales in the short term, but long term, brand will be king to go forward straight to consumer, because at the moment you're at mercy of those brands, those student accommodations giving you referrals. If they go out of business, or they decide they don't want to do it, or they decide they'll have their own packs, then it's going to be very difficult. So is that the idea behind the going back to, I'm going to need to go straight to the consumer as well?
Yeah, literally, that's exactly what happened. And what I found, you know, the more I got into business and things like that, was that you know, it's sort of like the business deals that actually, you know, partner like B2B that actually run like really like bigger opportunities in a lot of sense of like connecting directly with your consumers as well. Originally, that wasn't even something that I thought that I was going to do. I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to go straight, try and get as many students on board as I can, talk to parents and things like that. But yeah, it was like spark businesses to start partnering with other businesses that had my client base.
Yeah. And how have you found when you're going back now to this direct to consumer approach, how have you found that transition? Have you found something that's working for you there, or are you still tidying up processes?
I'd say, well, truthfully, when I was it's a bit of a struggle, because when I was solely focusing on partnering with like student accommodations, there's a lot that you miss when you forget to focus like directly on the consumers, you know. And the consumers, they are buying into your brand, they like your product, they're buying into it, and they're suggesting it to their friends, you know. And there's a different value in that you know, that I was beginning to overlook. And just focusing on partnering with B2B. When you're directly consumer facing, yes, it is longer. Yes, it is way more tedious. Yes, it does take more work, and it does take like way more of a strategic marketing approach and things along that line. But then when you get those consumers and they like your brand and you know, and they suggest it, that tends to be way more, that tends to be in essentially like way more valuable, because those are the consumers that will suggest you to their friends, will talk about you to their parents, you know, and literally stay with you throughout any transition. So yeah, they do both have their values, but right now I'm definitely just trying to focus on like weighing them both up and you know, packing them both in.
I think we're seeing a lot now of businesses really wake up and realize how big, like with all this COVID stuff, it meant so many businesses have shut down. Anybody who was relying on a third party or an intermediary who's perhaps gone out of business now for whichever reason, whether it's their fault or not, are now suddenly realizing how massively important it is to own not own the data, but to be brand facing, to not be having to be at the mercy of these intermediaries.
And that even speaks to the rise of, you know, all these influencers. Like that's why influencers and social media marketing is a thing. They have like a dedicated following. They have a dedicated group of people that are buying into everything they're saying, everything they're suggesting. And as companies, we can't forget that. Like as much as we even want to partner with these influencers, you know, and sort of, you know, leap on their database and, you know, what they have to create kind of your own brand loyalty and audience, you know, for yourself is just equally as important.
Absolutely. And on that note, I'm going to ask you a question now, which might be more difficult to answer, but what are you doing about that then? What's your strategy? Because I think this is interesting. This is probably where the biggest interest is going to be for a lot of people listening. They realize you're doing one thing that is working, but ultimately you're at the mercy of somebody else, and you've seen that you've got perhaps a vulnerability.
Yeah.
And lots of business owners end up in that position, especially when they're in that kind of 1 to 5 million mark. They realize that all their eggs are in like 1 or 2 baskets and that they need to diversify. So probably you're having, I'm going to guess the answer is a million different tests, but what are you doing for that direct to consumer model?
I've actually been prepping for this for about a year, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Honestly. No, literally by the end of the year, we're trying to launch, like I've been in the process of launching a media company. So basically, creating our own fresh and original content to engage with my users. We want to take them beyond just the service that we're providing and actually bring them some really cool, engaging, fun partnered content. We want to partner with like different influencers, get different students in universities like involved in the content, and just really create some engaging stuff. And literally interesting, I literally just had a meeting about this yesterday, which is I'm sure, I don't know if you know this, but like the UK average open rate just for like emails and just like direct marketing, it's only 0.07%. And I literally always constantly brag about my open rates when I'm talking to like any company trying to partner with me. So I'm like, I have an open rate of around like 48%, which is incredibly, incredibly high compared to the national average. But since this whole COVID thing, it's gone up to literally 78%. Like people are engaging and like interfacing and talking more. They're just more on their phone right now. They're just more engaging in whatever it is that you're giving to them. So, obviously that will probably die down after the COVID thing because people are going to be like outside and enjoying life. But I've literally been planning this and wanting to capitalize on this for like over a year now. And hopefully by the end of the year, we have partnered with like a really, really cool network to kind of help create like some really cool content that we have going forward and, separate it for like marketing purposes and things like that. But yeah, I've been planning for this. I've been trying to, and because initially my business was focused on targeting freshers, so students in their first year university. And I've been doing this for about 5 years now. So some of my database have graduated. They're no longer freshers anymore. So just trying to come up with like cool creative ways that we can still engage with them, market to them,
sell them something else as well. Often you hear this all the time in marketing where people say there's only 2 reasons people stop buying from you, and that's because you either offend them or you stop offering them things.
Literally, and I agree. I completely agree.
So there would be you could probably fund your entire media campaign by selling a product to people that have graduated.
Yeah, literally. Right. And that's the thing, and that's another good thing about like consumer, like you said, like going business to consumer. It's the data. People are like openly and happily giving you their data. Like that the value of the data I have like makes, add like 20% to my company valuation, and it's a very, very powerful thing to have. So engaging with that.
It also gives you, sorry.
No, go ahead.
It also gives you permission to pivot. Like something like this COVID thing, I think really opens up how, like if you think about brand, people always think fluff, whereas realistically, it just means how somebody feels about when they see your logo.
Yeah.
And so a really good example would be right now, like it's really hard to sell cars because nobody can come to your dealership to do a test drive.
Yeah.
But if BMW opened up their own engineering program, so you could get a degree from BMW that you do remotely and it's 10 grand, they'd have people sign up because their brand would give them permission, because their brand doesn't represent cars, their brand represents amazing engineering.
Completely agree. And like you said, that's the beauty of having data and like consumer facing and things like that. You can pivot, you can, be like, hey, here's the direction we're taking. Here's, some new things that we're trying out that people will still 100% connect with, as long as it sticks to like the main ideologies of like what your brand actually stands for.
Yeah, exactly.
It's limitless. It's absolutely limitless.
And I like where you said that you're launching a media company. I like that a lot, rather than, we're just going to put out content, because it's the mindset of, no, we are a media company first, whatever it is that we do, because that content will produce the brand. In the same way, when I describe this a lot, I like to use Red Bull as a good example, because their content marketing strategy is totally ridiculous for what they do, because their content marketing is all like extreme sports. Well, if I think about the type of person who does extreme sports, I don't think of somebody who needs an energy drink.
No, that's so true. That's actually so true.
But it gives you the sentiment, like the sentiment and feeling of Red Bull is now associated with high energy.
Yeah, no, it's clever. It's super, super clever. And that's the thing is, and that's like not along the same lines, but something that, I try to adhere to is that when I started Free the Fresher, I wasn't someone who, had all this experience in business, who even really knew what they were doing. When I started, the people that actually, signed up and became members, my first bit of press that I like really ever got was mom blogs. It was moms talking about like saying to other moms, hey, you should buy this if you have going to university. And it was the blog that picked up, and then I was getting like all this other media attention. So I like to think of instances like that in like sort of really any new direction that I'm taking. So even with like starting a media company and doing things like that, I want to just have really like cool, authentic content, for these people who are just through the brand, supported me and continue to support me, Yeah,
absolutely. So how have you found, or what kind of content, because you say this is all coming later, which gives me the impression that all this content is like very polished.
No, the main thing, like the things that I'm most personally excited about, we want to do like mini doc series where we're like featuring, like up and coming content creators, students with talent, people who weren't like normally be showcased. And then also as a part of like our marketing strategy that we've just implemented is that we use nano influencers. So people who don't have like huge followings, but they have smaller followings, but still, like me and you, or people who have followings between like 1 to 10,000 people, a lot, but not enough to where it's like companies are paying you like loads and loads of money to advertise. So what we tend to do is we use all of our members, or most of our members tend to be nano influencers, so we use them to like help the companies that we partner with like market through them. And we wanted to kind of highlight the same aspects of things with the kind of content that we want to create, like feature these people who have like really cool talents, that are sometimes sort of overlooked because like without the huge followings and things like that. But then also some really fun stuff, like some cool podcasts, like super authentic, like nothing off limits because my demographic is 18 to 25, just raw, cool, fun. But then also, some learning stuff, but then partnered with advertisers as well. Fun.
Well, I mean, it's a good thing. I really like that kind of model. I think that's a good way to go. So we're just saying these like nano or micro influencers and people like that, because you could easily get, not easily, but you could get, 10, 15, 20 of them to basically become all of your host broadcasters, because 3 of them will actually be good. And because you put them on and you built them up, you become associated with that person. Imagine if you were like the person who launched Jeremy Paxson. He'd be talking about it to this day.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. And I just relate with that so much. Like I was someone, I was just a uni student and I managed to turn myself into something. Who's to say there aren't like thousands more out there that want to do that and do that just need the opportunity to actually let that shine. So very much.
So I suppose that leads me to another question, which is, I'm going to push you on this one because I like your attitude on this. You're quite very forthcoming on how everything's going to go. And so the question would be, from my perspective, like I'm a marketing consultant and things, and when you say this is coming later in the year, if you were my client, I'd be like, why is it not happening tomorrow? Like,
Corona.
Yeah, but you don't need anything more than an internet connection to put content out.
I think that's not true, because I literally had a meeting about this yesterday. So when it comes to producing things, obviously we want the production to be like a certain level of content, a certain level of quality, and there's this gray area. So then you have people, when you're like producing content, it's absolutely like really high insurance right now, and then you have people who aren't going to want to show up to actually produce that content because of Corona, and then the people who do show up, it's really at their own risk, but it's like way more extortionate to do because the insurance rate of actually like putting something in production right now is like very, very difficult. So, you know, it's this gray area. It's not just content. You know, you do need people to get together. You do need to make it happen. And, you know, a
absolutely.
lot of sort of waiting out.
I'm encouraging a lot of people, and I think it would be, depends on your capacity and where you are and what you can do. But it's to start, because I know it's not maybe it's not the quality that you want, but with this COVID thing, you will get away with it. It won't matter. Like, this is not recorded in a studio because I can't leave my home to go to a studio. So it's not going to be, and it doesn't matter because everybody understands it's COVID. We all have to be at home right now. So you gives brands permission to be a little bit more, like, they don't have to be as polished. They don't have to be as like, and I actually think it would be better because you'll learn your voice quicker. And like, if you said to, you know, 100 of these micro-influencers, I want you to make me a video of something that I can put on this website that's interesting to students. I'll pay you, you know, 20 quid for that video. They're all going to do it. And they're all going to make something amazing. And you've got 100 videos for the, you know, the next 100 days. COVID's covered. That's it.
That's a very interesting perspective. And I might be limited because I think I could be like a slight bit of a perfectionist when it comes to things like this. And especially because I have a particular vision of how I want the content to come out and how I want it to like dissect it and break it up. Because like from a business standpoint, as much as I want content to just be out, there's the whole thing, a whole nother element that I'm thinking of around that, which will be the marketing of it. You know, we're partnering with different brands to make specific type of content. And a lot of that just can't be done very willy-nilly. But there is the argument that, you know, some can come out. But for the particular vision that I have, I'm not saying it's the correct one, but I'd rather have it look and feel a certain way, launch it really beautifully, as opposed to, you know, trying to react to the times, you know, because as much as that is, you know, it is a good point. You know, hopefully Corona will end and we will get back to normal. You know,
we should do at some point.
We should do at some point. And when we do, you know, the audience will still be there. You know, the engagement probably might not be as peak as it is right now, but, you know, as content creators, you know, you don't want that to be like the immediate focus. It would just be like the quality of the content, you know, the consistency of the content, and then, you know, making sure it resonates with the audience, and then everything else will just be really great over the time. Not saying it's the correct view, but it's definitely mine.
Yeah, fair. I mean, and this is why I wanted to bring it up, because it's an interesting, you know, which way do you go about it? Can you ultimately you because the answer is always you should do everything, but the problem is there is a limit to your time and resources. Like, so you have to make a decision at some point where you say, well, you know, even though that would only cost us $2,000 to do, that means that we're not going to be hiring that creative director for half a day to come in, because he's $2,000 consulting fee is for 3 hours.
Exactly. Like this, you know, it's you know, it's different sides to everything, but you know, for what I'm trying to do for the audience that like I completely have, there's a level of quality that I just want consistently throughout. Not to say that things can't be done very quickly, which I'm sure they could, but
I mean, I would do that. I know what I would do. I'd email like your top engaged customers. And I would say, make us a video of you at home, something, you know, give them specifics of like who your target audience is, what it needs to be about, you know, nothing horrifically like violent or, you know, disgusting, you know, give them directions, and then say, if it's featured on our page, I'll give you 20 quid. Because then you'll get like 1,000 videos and you can pick the top 100 of them, pay your $2,000 for the top 10% of media that you could possibly have got from any student on your database.
No, that's a great idea.
And then that's like, then it's like a front way in. Plus, every time you put it up, you're going to tag the person who's a customer. So when their friends say, "Oh, how did you get on that? Whose page is that?" It's word of mouth referral. It covers a whole range of like. It's not just the content now; it's also word of mouth referral at an extreme level.
That's definitely something to think about.
I'm going to leave you with that one then. So moving on, from that, and I want to talk to you a little bit about because so getting sales through the door, getting customers, building company, building brand is probably 90% of the equation, going from 0 to 1. That's it, like 1 million. Going past that, you're going to grow teams by this point. And the teams are not necessarily, when you get to that kind of level, you might be probably there now. Before 1 million, everybody reported to you. Whereas now you've got managers who manage people.
Yeah.
Or you might start thinking about people who are managing projects who have to be more independent from you, even though they directly report. So how do you view the whole leadership part?
Honestly, that has been the hardest part of starting a business. I will not even lie. No, there's been some more difficult things, but it's like on the end of like sort of the hardest things to do. When I first started, I was kind of faced with the fact that I was the youngest and everyone who I was hiring was either more experienced than me in certain things and older than me, so sometimes it was the struggle of like me being like, hey, I know what I'm doing, and people not really feeling like I had the authority to do that. And I'm like, wow, whose company is this? But like, you grow past that with different experiences. But the model that I use that has just sort of, I think, kind of ultimately led to my, the sort of success and being able to grow and even being able to still manage like my company while I'm in Bermuda and like feel that it's like the right hands of certain people is I do zero. So everyone's on this now, but I do it's like 100, it's called like 100 days off policy. Well, basically like everybody gets assigned tasks, management has certain tasks for like each section that they're doing. And everyone just has like certain tasks that they need to complete each day and each week. And as long as that's done, you come in whenever, you leave whenever, you go on vacation whenever, you can take sick days whenever, as long as your tasks are completed, there for the meetings, everything's the same. So it like, eliminates like a lot of like the office bureaucracy. It eliminates, a lot of issues that actually come with like hiring people. As long as you have a good culture, everyone feels valued, all the work's being completed, and there's not this, when you need to come in, oh, he's taking too many days off. I don't care. If you get the work done, you show up, we're good, So, and that took a while to even really implement and sort of come up with, because it's just different shortfalls, different things you have to go through. And England, especially with like hiring and firing people, it's incredibly bureaucratic. So many things that you have to go through. You can't just hire someone. You can't just fire someone. It's a lot. It's a lot of stages that you have to go through. So it took me a while to actually come up with that, but that's what I found is worked for me. And
And how do you? I like that model, and I think it's probably something that's coming out of a lot of more, say, I want to say younger entrepreneurs, but I don't want to just slide everything into a demographic. But if you started your company sort of not necessarily pre-internet, but pre-work from home is actually now a big thing, then you had more like, you come in 9 to 5 because your manager can just see that you're working. And so say that you have completed these tasks rather than mapping out tasks in Slack or something, or some sort of task map Trello board, and you're just ticking them off as you go because they're saying, well, it should take you, an hour to complete that, it should take you 3 hours to do that. And so they're just trying to add up a 40-hour week roughly. So how do you find, because that, if that's the model you've got, which I do like, but it obviously has its own drawbacks in the what happens when it's taking somebody longer to do things than you think it is, and they're saying that's not their fault, that's because your estimation of this time frame is wrong. Obviously there's going to be conflicts somewhere. How do you manage that kind of process?
But like with like anything that's implemented that you have to do, especially in a workspace, everything's evaluated. If you're obviously taking like 2 days to do something that takes an hour, it wouldn't go unnoticed. Like, you know what I mean? You constantly have to like stay on top of those things and evaluate things. But the beauty of like a system like that is that it does foster a level of trust between you and your employees. I'm trusting that you're doing the work and you're getting things done. So I can trust you, to come in when you want and to leave, when you want, and take vacations when you want, and not take too many sick days because there's not, this cloud over it, or this different energy. And I think just sort of fostering that relationship, creates a healthy balance on both ends. You're not trying to get away with not doing a lot of work, so you can like stay out later, because those dilemmas aren't there anymore. You're working for this company, it's giving back to you, it's rewarding you and being patient with the type of work that you want to do.
Mm.
You know, it's
Yeah.
like with anything, it does, it does require evaluation. And I would be lying to you if I said that people did not abuse it. But for the most part, I get better results with this model than, a normal 9 to 5, and
Yeah.
it fits my energy, it fits my company's energy, it fits, the whole brand that we're trying to create, and it's, my company is for students, it's for university students. It's literally the culture around even the service that we're providing. So
yeah, absolutely. I think that's a big element in the way you hire as well. Your company culture will be a reflection of the person at the top for any company, and having that breathe through the company in the fact that you've come up with the system, you own it, and you, even if it's not supposedly the best thing that you could be doing, although I actually think it is, then it kind of doesn't matter as long as it fits you and what you want and it feels right in the culture. Because then people who don't fit it, or they're like, this doesn't work for me, they don't need to be in your company. They'll find out through the methodologies and processes that you've put in place.
And truthfully, like when I started my business, there was like, because of, I'd say, like my lack of experience, not really knowing, there was just so many different things that I was trying to do that I felt like I should do. I felt there was a way I should handle this situation. There was a way like I should act. There was a way that I should do these things. And then, it took a lot of me, like, messing up or failing. And it was always the things that just didn't really fit how I felt. Whereas I was like, Makaela, this is your company. You can do what you want. You can act how you want. You can show up how you want. It is up to you. And then the more I sort of went with that feeling and that energy and that attitude towards things work out for me. That better that way. If I, it would be really inauthentic, for me to run to do a traditional 9 to 5, because that's not me. This is my company, my vision, and my brand. So it needs to be fitting all the ideologies, that accord to me. And that's super important. And I think, like with anyone who starts a business, they'll find that, like, the second you try to be not you, it's not, it's just not going to work, no matter, that's why, like, you just shouldn't look to what other people are doing ever, especially.
Or at least look at like 10 different ones so you can
obviously take things forward, always be learning, but always stay true to
then make it your own. I agree. I like that a lot. And so I suppose then going on from that, so we've kind of gone through the whole, like how we say, scaling through sales and marketing, leadership and things. What's the plan moving forward now? You've been around 5 years or so as a company. What would you want to do over the next,
I would say, honestly, my big goal is to crack the American market, transition my business like globally. But that's like a, bigger 10-year type of goal that I have. But right now it would just be sort of like fostering the loyalty that I have with my consumers already, growing within like the UK and Europe, really focusing on this media company, and then really being creative and exploring the direction that I can go with that. Because honestly, the opportunities with that, like, there's so many doors that can open with that. And for the longest time with starting Free the Fresher, it was very, very technical, like a lot of, like products and pricing and really, really tedious, boring things. And as much as I do love it, don't get me wrong.
There's elements.
I can tell you like about like the different textures of duvets. I have so many unnecessary. But for the first time, I'm getting to do something like a bit more creative and adventurous. So I'm really excited to see where that goes as well.
I'm interested to see this is me personally, but because you mentioned the way you look to expand there was width rather than depth, which is fine. I mean, there's no right or wrong, but it was interesting that probably your lowest hanging fruit is to build products and services for young professionals. So rather than following on with the freshers, it's expand the fresher part.
Yeah, no, and truthfully, that speaks to me as well, because it was never ever been a passion of mine to, sell packs to people. That doesn't resonate with my soul, the core from it came to like saving students money, and like not, helping students out of situations, situation that like I was actually in. That was the core of it. It was helping students, engaging with them and things like that. Like I'm very much a people's person. And then as my database grew, and what I've been able to do, even just like from a marketing standpoint and seeing how, people are paying me literally for the engagement that I have with my members, my main thing would be to capitalize on that and focus less on the product, because the product's there, but it's really, it's really the people that you're connecting with. And that's why with a media company, that's just another way to do that, and it's way more fitting to my personality anyway. Not that I don't love packs, because I do, I love, the stuff that I'm selling, but it just fits more to like my personality as well. And, when you really just kind of hold the loyalty of consumers, like we even talked about earlier, you can pivot, you can do anything. And even with the whole Corona situation, that's like been one of the main things that have just been able to, maintain us like throughout this time. Like what happens if I like can't get my stuff from like overseas and can't bring stuff into the UK? I still have my database. I still have companies wanting to pay me, to interact with them, and that's a value in itself that I definitely want to explore more.
That's by far the biggest asset. I think you're, launching that media company and having more people, you say top of funnel, but like having a bigger base of those, especially like you say, if you, 6 suppliers fall off the chain and you bring in 6 different ones, because you vetted them, your customers are going to value that. They're going to be like, well, this is definitely good. I don't need to look myself. And because that's the kind of half the service you're providing is a vetted service in many ways.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, it's good. It's interesting. And how are things? I do want to touch on the COVID part, but I didn't want to make it too much of a thing, mainly because in a few weeks' time, this will probably be over, or things will change anyway. But just on that, how has that affected your company, and what have you done?
The only thing that it's like really affected so far is sort of like the remote working conditions, which has been something that like we're kind of used to anyway, because it's not like everyone needs to be in all at once, so it's not too bad. But mainly like we're still getting like marketing clients and like ad clients and things like that. Like I said, our engagement rate's been like higher than it's ever been, so that's been like a definite blessing. But should schools not start in September, that would probably be like a bit annoying. But like I said previously, there's like loads of other like things that we're working on to really capitalize on the database that we do have. So right now, like with like a lot of people, it's just honestly a waiting game, But the hope is everyone does go back to school, and then things are just back to normal.
Yeah, you should hope so. I suppose that's your biggest risk, isn't it? If they don't go back to the student accommodation, things don't do anything for them. That's where your vulnerability lies. But like you said, it's months away and you've got time to plan, so that's always good.
But eventually, even as students don't go back to school in September, eventually, universities aren't going to be closed for the rest of our lives. We hope, but
should hope so. Or there's going to be the end of capitalism as we know it.
It really could, like I call it fear porn, because my parents are just addicted to the news, and we're in Bermuda, so it's like all the American news, so it's just like fear. At least in England, it's a bit more like, hey guys, this is what's happening. Here's not America's like, be scared.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. So I want to start wrapping things up. So appreciate your time. I could talk all day. But what are some thoughts that you'd like to leave people with? If at 2 stages, one is if they're thinking, should I start? And the other is the kind of where you are now. What are your, obviously you can't be an expert on where you're going in the future, but where do you see, you've got yourself off the ground and you're scaling. What are some things that you would tell other founders to perhaps think about that you've discovered?
Oh, I got buckets of advice. If you have a business idea and you know yourself to have the attitude to be very positive and very hardworking, then I say go for it, because you need to fail a lot, and you need to fail often, and you need to fail quickly. So once you can sort of like weather that, know you can get over that, fine, do it. If you don't try it. It's not for everybody. It takes a very particular attitude. I'd also say be very, very careful and conscious of the energies and the people that you have around you, because they impact you more than you know. It's like, it's a very, very hard thing to go down a road less traveled, and the most positive, healthy people and energy you can have around you is very, very important. Because not everyone's going to understand what you're doing. Not everyone's even going to like it or support it. So, having like a really good base, it's usually often family, but be really, really mindful of that. But I'd say positivity over everything. When people are like starting businesses and like going through hard stuff, it's very, it's a very lonely, depressing thing to do. And I don't think that's like talked about enough. It's very, very hard. Not a lot of people can relate, So like finding things that make you happy and staying positive and constantly staying positive will honestly make all the difference. But in the end, it's worth it. It's honestly worth it.
Yeah, I think that's it. Was it Steve Jobs said you have to have a ridiculous amount of passion for whatever you do, because if you didn't, there would just be no reason to do it.
Literally, like any sane person, I cannot tell you, there has been so many times where I'm like,
what am I doing?
I could literally just give up today. And then on the other side of that is, some really cool results. So, it's just like, being like, okay, so, this is really hard to be like, you know what, I can actually do it. It's that small mindset that actually makes all the difference. So I can't stress that enough. But like, I think this is a great time. We're in like, the biggest time ever where entrepreneurship has just been like such a thing with the access, even how we're able to talk right now, like you're in France, I'm in Bermuda, like technology is just paving the way for everything. So,
Absolutely. And my big thing is I think entrepreneurs will fix all the problems. Don't really trust too many governments and politicians to fix things. I think it's entrepreneurs like yourself who see a problem and go, I'm going to take responsibility for that one.
Yeah,
and then do something about it.
I completely agree. And it's a certain power in that when you put all the power in your hands as opposed to someone else's, like I think about that a lot. So
yeah, I can't remember who it is, but that's going to annoy me. But somebody once said entrepreneurship is finding other people's problems and taking responsibility for it.
Yeah, no, true. I agree. I completely agree.
It's going to really annoy me.
And it's hard to even say what an entrepreneur looks like, because it's just, it's like certain situations, like it just honestly happens. But when it does, go for it.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you very much for your time and speaking with me and telling us all about your story. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
No problem at all. And if people want to get in touch, if they've been inspired by something, where should they go? Don't touch you because there's like a million people trying to reach out to you.
No. Of course, like you can find me on Instagram. It's just Makaela_R. I would say email me, but I just get so many emails.
Yeah, don't.
I try to be on social media as much as I can, but
perfect, great. Well, thank you very much, and thank you to everybody who's been watching along. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have got questions and comments and things, leave them in the comment section below. One of us will be sure to get back to you. But yeah, thanks for joining us today. See you later.
Great.
That was really good.